Israel's preparing for a pivotal election next week. Benjamin Netanyahu admits he may not win Tuesday's vote after the polls showing that the Likud party is losing ground. John Medved is one of Israel's biggest venture capitalists. He's the CEO of OurCrowd. He joins me now. How much of an upset will it be if he doesn't win? Because there'll be a serious amount of horse trading as to who will become Prime Minister.
Absolutely. That's always the rule of the day in Israel, is horse trading indeed. I think it would be a huge upset if he doesn't get the same kind of result he got just 90 days ago. Remember, Richard, this is a redo, right? In other words, we just went to elections. We elected a right-wing majority, except there's one guy in the right wing named Avigdor Lieberman who didn't like what the government under Netanyahu was doing with the ultra-Orthodox, and he demanded a redo of the election and prevented him from getting that coalition. Now, the polls are bouncing all over the place. Most Israelis are pretty asleep relative to this election. This has not been a high-energy affair. But the one thing is sure is that there will be a lot of horse trading the day after Tuesday.
And the business environment, as it continues, of course, if there's one environment, I mean, obviously, there's the hugely exciting tech sector, but its ability to withstand this level of uncertainty.
It's proven impervious to uncertainty, missiles. It's really bizarre. I mean, this last week we've had a couple of missiles lobbed into the country. In fact, one that sort of famously scattered our prime minister off of his podium at a campaign rally. And yet, you know, last week and this week I've been seeing investors from China, Denmark, the UK, the US. Nobody seems to matter. It's really as though the Israeli tech industry is completely orthogonal to what goes on geopolitically.
All right. And if we look at the IPO market that we've seen in New York, where we've seen some IPOs doing extraordinarily well, but then the headline marquee tech ones, Uber, Lyft, and a variety of others, just simply go nowhere. What's going on with IPO?
Well, it really depends on the company. We were involved in the IPO of a very exciting company called Beyond Meat, where we actually, through OurCrowd, brought in hundreds of investors before the company went public. And the stock has just been a horse. I mean, speaking of horse trading, this has been incredible. So yes, while, you know, Uber and Lyft have not been particularly exciting, let's remember that there are companies like Zoom, there are companies, you know, from a couple of years back, like Smartsheet and others, who have done very, very well. And what's interesting is how it's not just a bubble where everybody goes up. The investors today are very discerning and looking for that real value in the IPO market.
Right, but they're looking for real value, but what's the definitive metrics of that value? If you take, I mean, if you just look at Uber or Lyft, I mean, these are companies admittedly losing a chunk of money, but they have tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of consumers and are providing a service, but investors don't give them credit, or what are they seeing?
So until now, it's all been growth, growth, and more growth, right? The market has been rewarding growth at all costs. I think the corrective of the last couple of months has been, okay, I buy the growth story, but show me the beef. Show me that you can actually make a profit. And that's what's happening. And so companies like Beyond Meat, who are just gaining tremendous ground with deals with Dunkin' Donuts and KFC and a whole host of others, people are believing that they are going to be not only a growth story, but a profit story, whereas some of the others are lagging behind. The real question for the investor is, how do they get in before they go public? Because today, all the companies are waiting too long to take advantage of these public markets, and platforms like OurCrowd have to provide an answer to those investors so they can invest before these companies are actually going public.
Get in at the grassroots or get in on the ground floor and watch what happens thereafter. Good to see you, John. As always, we do appreciate it.
Amen. Good to see you, Richard. All the best.